welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello, hi, I'm Jyotsna and welcome to Jyotsna's Bookscapades, where I talk about books. So this particular video is the wrap-up video for April, because I can't believe that we've already covered 4 months in 2022 and things are soon trying to get back to normal, although there might be some cases in and around. Our work has started, things have started in a full-fledged manner, and even the mask mandate is off, so you don't need to wear masks technically, so that's a good thing, I believe. But yeah, we just hope that the mask mandate comes in again because of the exponential rise in cases. This video, which is a very important video because it talks about my April books, the books that I read in April, and I really like the month of April, to summarize, because I could read quite a few books as compared to the months before, because if I've read like extensively this year, it's been in Jan, right? Because February and March were February was the worst reading month, and then it came to March, and then it was not like the greatest reading month either. But I really liked April a lot because I could finish like 3 physical books as well. So my aim is also to empty my shelf kind of, because I would really want to read more books on my shelf. So that being said, all the books that I'm going to talk about in this video are in the order of finishing them. So they are in the description box below. The timestamps are given, and each of them will have their own dedicated 2 to 3 minutes. So let's get started. So the first book that I finished in April is actually a political non-fiction book, and that is India-China Challenge by Ananth Krishnan. Now, this particular book is a very interesting read because Ananth Krishnan has spent 8 years in Beijing exploring China, and this was when he was writing, I believe, for The Hindu, and there were very few Indian media outlets in 2008 that actually had journalists stationed in Beijing. So from what I understood from his experience and from his book is about how India and China can find a middle ground and can work together in order to be better collaborators. The book is kind of divided into like 5 to 6 parts, which covers the economy, the history, individual experiences of the Chinese when it comes to Indians, and also it talks about like the War of 1962 and things like that. Now, I have said this before on this channel when I was talking about this book. I'm going to say it again. If you are someone who's just a beginner in political nonfiction, then maybe this is not the book you read, because I did not like the fact that in this book he does not explain the Great Revolution or the Cultural Revolution, not concepts, I would say historical events that happened during Mao's time. And it's very important to understand that in order to understand the history of communism in China, right? Another thing that I would like to mention is that this is something that I actually liked because it kind of combined his personal experiences with the current geopolitical situation, because this book released in 2020, and while it was kind of being released, he has also put in quite a few notes about the border clashes, because I think this book covers the border clashes pretty well, because it talks about the history of the the Indo-China border, and it talks about like why is there a dispute, and then it tells you that okay, there was a dispute recently in 2020. So with respect to current affairs, this book is very good and very well informed. But when you talk about history or like terms, as long as you want to Google it, please feel free and go and Google it, and it'll be like amazing. But if you don't want to Google it, then don't go for this first, go for some other book. So the next book that I finished was on audio, and that was The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak, which is a total 5 stars from me. I absolutely enjoyed this book. This book is specifically set in the country of Cyprus. So something that I didn't know about Cyprus, because maybe this is the first book. Yeah, this is the first book that I'm reading about Cyprus. It's kind of divided into 3 sections. Like there's of course the Republic of Cyprus, then there is the Turkish Cyprus, and then there's the Greek Cyprus. So the Greek and the Turkish sides are always fighting, and it was just chaos in 1973 or so, when the Turkish forces decided to invade Cyprus. And amidst all of this, there is a Greek boy and a Turkish girl who have fallen in love, and it's their story basically, right? And it keeps switching between present day London and the Cyprus in the 1970s, and it kind of tells you their love story. It kind of tells you a lot of aspects that we see in the world today, including war, refugees, immigration due to violence, and things like that. So I highly recommend it, and I'm telling you, this is an amazing book, and I really admire Elif Shafak as an author. So the next book that I finished reading was actually this one. This is The Silent Coup by Josy, which talks about the dark side of the Indian security establishment. Now, this is going to be a life-changing book for you if you're an Indian, because the way you look at the system, the way you look at the security systems that are meant to protect us, ultimately don't kind of end up protecting us. And Josy, being the veteran journalist that he is, takes a lot of, I would say, data and tries to present it to us in a very good manner, telling us that this is the situation and this is the case. I absolutely not enjoyed is the wrong word. I was terrified of this book, because every time I read this, I literally had Oprah's expression on my face. When Oprah interviews Meghan Markle and her husband, and then they talk about the baby and if the baby would be black, and then Oprah's like, what? And that what was me when I was reading this book. Brilliant read, very well researched, a total 5 stars from me. And if you're an Indian, please not miss this. The thing is that this book is kind of getting out of print now, because this is from Westland, and Westland is closing soon. So this is actually from Context, which is a publishing, I would say, name under Westland. And please buy it immediately. Thank you so much. Okay, and that's that. And the next book that I finished was actually an ebook, and that was The Perfect World of Miwako, Sumida, by Clarissa, whose surname I still do not know how to pronounce. So she's basically a Singaporean Indonesian author, and I was actually recommended this book by a subscriber. Actually, like, he recommended to me on Goodreads, and that's how I ended up reading it. So the thing is that with this particular book, it's a new adult read, and I've not read many new adult books, but this is the proper clear new adult read, which talks about Miwako Sumida, who is in her early 20s, and she basically died by suicide, and the friends that she has are pretty shocked. There is a guy who likes her, and he's also pretty shocked, and they are just going to find answers about her death. Now, for me, this book, I would say, on some level, was not really impressive. I understand the book, I get it, but it did not impress me to the core. But I understand the essence of the book, and that's why I think I ended up rating it 3.7 stars. But the book on the whole is something that can be enjoyed by someone who's actually in the early 20s. Because if I would have read this book in my early 20s, I would be like, oh wow, that's a nice book. But for me, now that I understand human emotions much better, now that I understand psychology much better, and now that I understand how the world works much better, this kind of felt very distant for me. Okay, and maybe there's a personal choice, but you will love it. But another thing that really annoyed me was the author has written when you look at Japan through a periscope and write something, and when you go to Japan and sit there and write something, there is a difference. So it just felt like the author just went for a trip to Japan for 5 days, and she came back, and then she decided to write this book, right? Because the geography, everything was a bit juvenile, and it had very distant eyes. I did not feel like I was in Japan at all. I just felt like there are these random places in Japan that we're going to in order to investigate this girl's death. So again, I don't know if I will recommend it or not, but if you like new adult books, then this is a book to read. And if you want to read about suicide and the emotions associated with it. Maybe this is the book to read, I think I'll recommend it, but otherwise not really recommended by me. And this gets me to the last book that I finished this month, because it's a pretty short video. I finished 5 books this month, and the last book here is Mohanaswamy by Vasudhendra, translated from Kannada. And I basically read this book for Lit with Indian Lit that's been hosted by Smriti, and I had this book, right? It's a pretty short book. It's a pretty interesting book as well. It's very quick to read. It's something that I can really get through. Like I got through this book in 3 days, okay, because the language is easy, the translation is pretty simple, but there are some aspects in this book that really, I would say, disgusted me, and there are some aspects in this book that I absolutely loved a lot. It's something very interesting, because I mean, of course I cannot tell you what those instances are, because then I would be telling you spoilers, and I do not want to tell you spoilers. But the point being that this was just a 3.5 stars for me. I understand the book, I get the book, and I totally sympathize with the characters in the book and their predicament. But unfortunately, I could not like this book because it kind of was just very blank. Another thing that I do want to mention about this book is this, that like I said, right, there are some good instances as well, and they're very shocking, because the treatment of homosexuals in this country has never been good, and we need to improve the way we treat homosexuals, to be honest. So this book is that kind of testimony to make you understand that what do people go through just because their sexual orientation is not straight. Basically, like anybody in the spectrum would face something like this, and it's a heartbreaking thing anyway. But the impact, the entire impact of that heartbreaking story cannot reach the reader. Maybe it's the translation, maybe it's the writing, but again, I would not discourage you from reading the book, because this is a very good book for a beginner when it comes to translations, when it comes to books in general, when it comes to LGBTQ literature in general. This is a great book, but what put me off totally was, of course, the writing. So yes, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching till the very end. If you really like this video, leave me a thumbs up, and of course subscribe to the channel, because I am posting 1 video a week nowadays, and it's kind of helping me. But yeah, I mean, please do the needful, and yeah, and also give me like a books emoji if you can. I mean, I don't know if you can, but if you can, if you watched till here, give me a books emoji, and I will see you on my next video. Bye.